I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here we are. It's honestly still hard to believe sometimes that I was blind for so long, trusting her because I wanted to believe in the best. My name's Mark, and this is the story of how I found out my wife, well, ex-wife now, slept with our neighbor who also happened to be my boss. It's a long story, but I'll start at the beginning. We'd been together for years. I met Lisa fresh out of college, and she was everything I thought I wanted: kind, funny, beautiful in a way that made people turn their heads. We got married last year in a small ceremony with our closest friends, and I thought we were solid. She always said she loved me, that I was her future. That's why I never really looked too hard for trouble. But I was wrong, profoundly wrong. It all started a couple of months ago. Small things at first. She'd cancel plans last minute, say she was working late or that she needed to stay at her sister because she was supporting family. I didn't question it. She wasn't the type to cheat. Right? Or so I told myself. I trusted her, maybe too much. One night I was working late myself, and I decided to take a different route home just to clear my head. I passed that hotel we'd stayed in once for a weekend getaway. Nothing fancy, just a little boutique place on the edge of town. I had no reason to go near it, but something about it caught my eye. I saw the parking lot lights cutting through the night, and I felt a strange twinge in my stomach. That's when I saw her, Lisa, walking out of the hotel with a man. I froze. My stomach dropped. I saw her face lit by the neon sign, her eyes flickering with guilt and something else I couldn't quite make out in the dark. They parted ways quickly, but I saw enough. The way she looked at him, like he was the only thing that mattered, made my blood run cold. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I waited. But then I remembered something. An email she'd gotten a few days before from a hotel reservation confirmation with a name I didn't recognize. When I checked our bank account, there was a charge for that very hotel for that exact night. It was just a small detail, but it hit me hard. She had lied about her whereabouts, lied for months, and I'd been blind to it. The next day I confronted her. I asked her straight out if she'd been unfaithful. She didn't deny it. Instead, she played the victim. "You're overreacting," she said, eyes wide and trembling. "It was just a mistake. It didn't mean anything." She told me I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her, but I knew better. I'd seen the hotel receipt, and I knew she'd been lying about where she'd been. The worst part, she looked me in the eye and lied again, saying she was home the whole time. But her hands were still trembling, her voice shaky. I saw the little telltale flicker of guilt in her eyes, and that's when I realized I'd been played. For months, she'd been sneaking around behind my back, and I'd been stupid enough not to see it. I felt my stomach tight. My jaw clenched. I could feel my fists tremble at the thought of her betrayal. I didn't say anything at first. I needed to think, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let this slide. I had to plan my next move carefully. I couldn't just confront her and walk away. I needed something more, something that would make her regret every lie, every sneer, every second she spent with him while I was at home, clueless. That's when the idea started to take shape. I began to see how I could turn this chaos around, not just to hurt her, but to make her feel what I felt in that moment. Betrayal, humiliation, the crushing realization that she'd played me for a fool. I didn't want her to walk away unscathed. I wanted her to see her actions for what they were, but I didn't jump into it all at once. No, I needed a plan, something precise, something that would hit her where it hurts, publicly, quietly, but effectively. I wanted her to know that I wasn't naive anymore, that I saw her true face. I spent days gathering information, watching her routines, digging into her accounts. Every detail, every moment I could use. I knew she'd lied so convincingly before, so I wasn't trusting her words anymore. I needed proof beyond the hotel receipt that she'd been unfaithful, and I found it. That's where I am now, standing on the edge of a storm I'm about to unleash. I won't be the fool again, not this time. I spent the next few days obsessing over every detail. My mind kept circling back to that hotel receipt, the way she lied so effortlessly, and how easy it seemed for her to pretend everything was normal. I needed more than just her word or the single piece of evidence I'd found. If I was going to do this, I had to be thorough. I started digging into her phone, her emails, anything that could give me the full picture. She was sloppy sometimes, leaving little clues behind. I found texts from him, late-night messages, flirtatious emojis that made my stomach churn. She was clearly still involved, even after all that pretending to be just busy or working late. Every new piece of this puzzle just fueled my rage. One evening, I caught her texting him again. I felt my palms slick with sweat just reading those messages, her talking about plans to meet, about how he couldn't wait to see her, and how they'd been so good at hiding it. That's when I realized I had everything I needed to make her realize that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I wasn't going to confront her immediately. I had something else in mind. That night, I stayed up late compiling all the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, hotel receipts, the texts. I created a file, a dossier of her betrayal. I knew I couldn't just surprise her with everything. No, I needed to make her understand that I knew exactly what she'd done. I wanted her to feel the weight of her lies. Next morning, I woke up with a plan. I called her from an unknown number, pretending to be someone else. I told her I'd been watching her, that I knew about her affair, about the hotel, about everything. Her voice cracked, trying to deny it, but I cut her off. "Don't lie anymore," I said. "I've got everything." She started sobbing then, begging me to believe her, claiming it was just a mistake, that she loved me and she'd end it if I wanted. I told her that wasn't good enough. Not anymore. I set the ground rules. She was going to come clean or I'd take what I had to the next step. I stayed quiet for a long moment, then told her, "If you want to keep lying, I'll make sure everyone finds out, including your job and your family." That shocked her silent, and I could tell she realized I was serious. I promised her I'd give her one last chance. If she confessed everything, I'd think about it. If not, I had more surprises planned. That afternoon, I went to my boss's office, her lover's, under the pretense of needing to talk about a project. I waited until he was alone, then laid out everything I'd gathered. His face went pale, but he recovered quickly. "You don't have proof," he said, trying to sound confident. I pulled out the receipts, the texts, the emails. I watched the shock and panic register on his face. It was satisfying, but I knew I wasn't done yet. I left their office with a clear purpose. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about exposing her for what she really was. I'd set things in motion now. The pieces were in place. She could try to deny, cry, plead. Nothing would save her from what I was about to do. I just had to wait for the right moment. That night I went home, exhausted but alert. I felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. My stomach was tight, my hands trembling with the need for justice. I knew she'd come crawling soon. I was ready to make her see that her betrayal wouldn't stay hidden forever, but I also realized something else. Once this was over, there'd be no going back. I'd be done. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about proving to her and to myself that I wasn't a fool, that I could survive this, that I'd take back control by whatever means necessary. Now I just had to wait and watch. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying everything, the hotel, the texts, her trembling voice on the phone. I felt a strange mixture of adrenaline and dread. I knew she'd try to spin her story, cry her way out of it, or pretend she was the victim again. But I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. I'd set my plan in motion, and I was determined to see it through. I had one last step before I'd confront her face to face, something that would hit her where it hurt. I wanted her to realize that I had everything, that I wasn't just some naive husband who got blindsided. I was going to make her regret every lie, every betrayal. So I stayed up that night, hacking into her email and social media accounts. It took some effort, but I knew her passwords. I wanted to get a look at everything: messages, photos, plans. I needed to know how deep her deception went. What I found made my stomach turn. She'd been planning this for months. There were messages from him about covering their tracks, about keeping it quiet until the right moment. She'd even booked the hotel with a fake name so I wouldn't find out. Every message was laced with lies, with her trying to hide what she was doing. It was meticulously planned, and I realized how much she'd been lying every time she said she was just busy at work. But what really made me see red was a photo she hadn't deleted, her, in the hotel room, smiling and holding his hand. It was taken just a few days before our wedding. That was the moment I knew she'd been cheating on me for longer than I'd suspected. A cold wave of fury washed over me. I clenched my fists. I'd been played, used, lied to. By the time dawn broke, my plan was crystal clear. I wasn't just going to confront her. No, I was going to do something that would make her realize the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to feel the same sick feeling I had when I discovered her secret. I wanted her to see how it felt to be humiliated, betrayed, and utterly exposed. My first move was to send her a message, an anonymous one. I used to burn her phone and sent her a simple, direct message. I know everything. Meet me tonight, bring what you've been hiding. Her eyes widened when she saw it. I could tell she was terrified, but she didn't say a word, just her trembling hands clutching her phone. Later that evening, she showed up at the agreed location, a quiet park nearby. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around, trying to figure out what was coming. I was already waiting, calm but deadly, my arms crossed. When she finally spotted me, I didn't waste any time. You lied to me for months, I started, voice steady but cold. I saw the receipts, the texts, the photos. You've been cheating on me with our neighbor, my boss. How long has this been going on? She broke down then, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. It was a mistake. I was confused. I didn't know how to tell you. I shook my head slowly. You lied for months. You played the victim while you were screwing around behind my back. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal, and I'm done pretending it's okay. I paused, then added, but I'm not done with you yet. I handed her a folder I'd put together, screenshots, hotel receipts, her messages, everything. Her face went pale. She looked like she wanted to disappear. I saw the moment she realized her lies had been uncovered and that I had proof. You think you can just cry and plead your way out of this, I told her. No, not anymore. You're going to regret this. You've hurt me more than you could ever understand. And I promise I will make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, I didn't mean for you to find out like this, she begged. I love you. Love doesn't cheat, I said flatly. And it sure as hell doesn't lie for months while sneaking around with our boss. I took a breath, feeling my jaw tight. I want you out of my life tonight. What happened next? Well, let's just say the fallout was immediate and brutal. The moment I handed her the folder, everything shifted. Her trembling hands clutched the documents like they were a lifeline, but I saw behind her eyes fear, shame, and something even darker. She looked like she wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. I could feel my own pulse pounding in my ears as I watched her try to process what I'd just exposed. I'm done, I said, voice low and steady. You've lied, you cheated, and you've been playing me for a fool. I'm not going to let this slide, not anymore. I took a step closer. You're out of the house tonight, pack your things and don't come back. I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow and I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Her eyes welled with tears, but I didn't care. The anger bubbling inside me threatened to swallow me whole. I felt my fists clench involuntarily. She looked up at me, her voice trembling. Please don't do this. I didn't mean for everything to come out this way. I love you, I really do. I shook my head slowly. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't lie. You made your choice and now you're going to deal with the consequences. I saw her scrape her chair back, trying to stand, but I held up a hand. Stay there. I don't want to hear any more lies. You already told me enough. She looked at me with big, pleading eyes, tears streaming down her face. I realized she was desperate, trying to cling to some hope that I'd forgive her, or maybe just delay the inevitable. But I wasn't buying it anymore. This was the end of the line for her. I pulled out my phone and started dialing the number for a locksmith. You're leaving this house tonight, I said, and no, I don't want you to say a word to me on your way out. Just take your things and go. My throat felt tight, but I kept my voice firm. I wanted to sound as composed as I could, but inside I was burning with rage. While she gathered some clothes, I called a friend to come and pick her up. The car pulled up minutes later, and I watched her step into it like she was walking to her death. She looked back once, eyes swollen, lips trembling. I didn't say a word. I just watched her drive away, feeling the weight of her betrayal settle deep into my chest. In the days that followed, I threw myself into action. I went straight to the lawyer and started the divorce process. I also reached out to a few people I trusted, friends, family, and told them everything. I wanted the world to see her true face. People who knew her, people who had been close, needed to know she wasn't the person they thought she was. On top of that, I made sure to get rid of everything that reminded me of her. Photos, gifts, any trace of her presence. In my apartment, it was painful, but I knew I had to cut those ties. I wanted nothing left of her to cling to. I needed a clean break. One night as I sat alone in my apartment, the silence was deafening. The ache of betrayal was still fresh, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. I had survived and I was going to be okay. It hurt like hell, but I knew I'd come out stronger on the other side. Looking back, I can't help but wonder how I was so blind for so long. How I trusted her when all the signs were there. Little things I dismissed, her evasiveness, her excuses. I wish I'd seen it sooner. But I also know now that betrayal leaves scars, and sometimes you have to go through hell to find your way back. My advice: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how small they seem. And if you catch someone betraying you, don't be afraid to face it head on. You deserve honesty, respect, and loyalty. Anything less is a betrayal of your worth. As for me, I'm finally starting to breathe again. I've handed the keys to her, and I've taken the first steps toward healing. It's a long road, but I'm on my way, and I'll never let myself be blind again. A few weeks after she left, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. I'd spent days sorting through my belongings, clearing out everything that reminded me of her: photos, clothes, even the little silly things I kept just to remember the life we'd built. The house felt lighter, but the silence was deafening. I spent most of my time at work, throwing myself into projects, trying to distract myself from the void. But there were moments, late at night especially, when everything hit me all over again. The betrayal, the lies, the way she'd played me like a fool for so long. It burned inside me, deep and hot. One evening, I sat in my living room, staring at the empty space where her side of the bed used to be. My mind was racing. I thought about everything I'd uncovered, the pain I'd endured, and the fact that I'd managed to get through it. I was angry at her, at myself for trusting her, at the whole world for seeming so unfair. But mostly I was angry that she had taken so much from me: my trust, my future, my peace. Then it struck me, an idea that suddenly felt like the only way to truly make her regret everything. I wasn't just going to let her walk away and forget about the damage she'd done. No way. I was going to make sure she understood the full weight of her betrayal, and I was going to do it on my own terms. I started to plan my revenge. Not in a childish way, but in a calculated, deliberate manner. First, I had to make sure she knew I was still in control, still the man she'd betrayed. I wanted her to feel the loss, the humiliation, and the regret long after she'd gone. It had to be something she wouldn't forget, something that would serve as a lesson to her, however bitter that might sound. My first move was to find out exactly what she was doing now. I tracked her social media, checked her new contacts, her new routines. She was trying to rebuild her life, maybe feeling a false sense of security. I knew I had to be subtle, clever. I could blow everything all at once. That would make it messy, and I wanted precision. So I created a plan. I'd send her a message, an anonymous note, just to remind her that I knew everything. Nothing explicit, just enough to make her realize I was still watching, still aware. I wanted her to feel the paranoia creeping in, that maybe I was closer than she thought. A simple message: "You thought you got away with it, but I'm still here. Beware." Something like that. I also reached out to a few contacts I had, people who could help me with some discreet steps. Nothing illegal, just enough to make her uncomfortable. A few subtle hints, a little gossip here and there. I wasn't looking for a public shamming, just enough to shake her confidence and remind her that her secrets weren't safe. The most satisfying part of this plan was that I was doing it all quietly. No drama, no confrontation, just power in the shadows. She'd never see it coming, and that made it all the sweeter. I wanted her to feel the same sense of betrayal I'd felt, and I was going to make damn sure she did. I realized I wasn't just doing this to punish her, I was doing it to reclaim my dignity, to show her that she couldn't just run away and forget, that her actions had consequences, even if she didn't see them right away. As I continued with this quiet revenge, I found a strange sense of peace. I wasn't the victim anymore. I'd taken control, and I was slowly rebuilding from the ruins. It wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about justice, my own kind of justice. And honestly, it felt good to be the one wielding the power for once, to take back what was mine, to remind myself that I deserved better, that I was stronger than her lies and her betrayal. And in that strength, I found a kind of freedom I hadn't known before. The weeks that followed were a strange mixture of quiet anticipation and slow healing. I stuck to my plan, executing every step with calculated patience. The anonymous messages, the subtle hints to acquaintances, the small acts that kept her off balance, each one contributed to a feeling that I was finally regaining control. I could see her slowly unraveling, her confidence shaken, her paranoia creeping in. One evening, I received a message from an unknown number. It was simple but effective. "You've made your point, but don't get too comfortable. I'm still watching." That's when I knew I'd succeeded. She thought she'd escaped, but I'd made sure she'd never feel safe again. That satisfaction was bitter but necessary. I remember the moment I finally decided I was done. I sat on my balcony, a cold beer in hand, watching the sunset streak across the sky. The air was crisp, the kind of evening that makes you feel small but somehow alive. My stomach was tight, my shoulders heavy, but I felt a strange sense of liberation. I'd faced everything head-on, her lies, her betrayals, her manipulations, and I'd come out the other side. I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. So I gathered my courage, sorted through the final remnants of her things, and made my move. I went to her old apartment, her new place, her new life, and I left a simple note on her door. It read, "I know what you did. Consider this your final warning. Stay away from me and my life, or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." Then, I turned around and walked away, feeling lighter than I had in months. I wasn't seeking revenge for revenge's sake anymore. I was doing it for me, to reclaim my dignity, to finally close that chapter of my life. It was the end of a long, painful story, but also the start of something new. A few days later, I filed for divorce. It was a straightforward process, but it felt like lifting a weight I'd carried for too long. I gave her the keys to her apartment, handed over all the shared accounts and possessions, and signed the papers with a sense of finality. She wasn't part of my future anymore, and I was finally ready to move on. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from all of this. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people will betray you in ways you never expected. But I also learned that strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising again every time you do. That vengeance, when done right, isn't about hurting others but about setting yourself free, about taking back your agency. So here's what I want to say to anyone reading this who's in a similar situation. Don't ignore the red flags, trust your gut, and don't be afraid to face the truth, no matter how painful it is. When someone betrays you, they're trying to break you, but you are stronger than their lies. Take control. Do what you need to do to protect your peace, whether that's confronting, walking away, or exposing the truth. And for the record, the greatest revenge isn't making her feel the pain. That's too easy. It's rebuilding yourself stronger and smarter than before. Because at the end of the day, nothing hurts more than knowing you let someone take advantage of your trust. But you can take that trust back, and you can do it by standing tall and never looking back.